Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Theruvan Saranai. Good evening, Venerable Mahasangha, Sales, and brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Today we are continuing with the second part of the Dassana Tika, removable by insight triplet. So during our last lesson, we mentioned that the dassanena Tika comprises of three terms. Dassanena pahātabbā dhamma states that are removable by insight. Bhāvanāya pahātabbā dhamma states that are removable by cultivation. And neva dassanena na bhāvanāya pahātabbā dhamma states that are removable by neither insight nor cultivation. So we started with the initial description of the Nikkepa Khandān. We mentioned that the states that are removable by insight comprises of the three fetters: sakkaya ditthi, wrong view of self, vicikiccha, doubt, silabbata paramasa, clinging to rites and ceremonies in the belief that they can lead to liberation. We also spoke briefly about sakkaya ditthi, what is wrong view of self. And we went into the details word by word. And today we need to continue with the word vinaya. And that is with regards to arya dhamme avinito. Yes, so arya dhamme avinito refers to a person who is not trained according to the Aryan doctrines. And the word vinaya is twofold. One is discipline of restraint, samvara vinaya, and the other is discipline of elimination, pahāna vinaya. And each of these, samvara vinaya and pahāna vinaya, is further subdivided into 5. So it becomes 5-fold, altogether giving us 10 different types of vinaya. So with regards to samvara vinaya, we have already described these 5 types of samvara vinaya. So today we need to move on to pahāna vinaya and what each of these 5 pahāna vinaya refer to. So first we will talk about tadanga pahāna, elimination of the factor in question. So the Atthasālinī, the commentary to the Dhammasaṅgaṇī, gives a paragraph which is quite complex, difficult to understand. So what we will do is we will take these sentences one by one and describe them so that it will be easier for you to understand the content within this paragraph. So to understand what Tadanga Pahanam is, we first need to know the stages of purification. There are 7 stages of purification, and these are the stages which are mentioned in the Visuddhimagga. So they are also called Satta Visuddhi, meaning 7 stages of purification. And corresponding to these stages of purification are 10 insight knowledges, which are also in Pali, which are called Dasa Vipassana Jnana. So now we will take them one by one and try to understand what Tadanga Pahana is. Now, with regards to Tadanga Pahana, what out of these 7 Visuddhi, the Visuddhi, Ditti Visuddhi, the third one, the purification of view, Ditti Visuddhi, until the 6th, Patipada Jnana Dassana Visuddhi, by knowledge and vision of the way. Those 4 Vishuddhis or stages of purification are the ones which are relevant to Tadanga Pahana. So the whole process of enlightenment involves 3 broad steps. The first is Sila, the second is Samadhi, and the third is Panya. So here, corresponding to Sila, the stage of purification would be Sila Visuddhi. And then corresponding to samadhi would be chitta visuddhi. And then ditti visuddhi onwards, the remaining visuddhi corresponds to panya. Now, we will first look at ditti visuddhi. A person who is meditating, undergoing vipassana meditation or insight meditation, first needs to understand comprehensively about mind and matter. So the mind and matter here that we're talking about are the mundane mind and matter, which belongs to the sense sphere, fine material sphere, and the immaterial sphere, the three mundane spheres. And the understanding about mind and matter should be with respect to these four aspects: lakkana, rasa, paccupatthana, and pahātabbā. Now we will try to understand what these four words mean through an example. So first we'll take the example of fire. What is the characteristic or the lakkana of fire? It is temperature or heat. And then the function or rasa of fire would be to burn or boil or ferment. Those would be the functions of fire. And next we come to paccupatthana, that is the manifestation. So what gives what is the result of fire? It would be smoke. And finally, pahātabbā is the proximate cause. What is the cause of the fire? So if you take two pieces of dry wood and rub it together, that will be the cause of the fire. So this is a simple example to make you understand what this lakkana, rasa, paccupatthana, and pahātabbā means. So likewise, the meditator or the yogi needs to be able to understand or experience the different characteristics, the functions, manifestations, and the proximate causes of all of these mind and matter individually. And that is the first stage of this purification of view. So once the meditator is able to understand comprehensively about the mind and matter in these four aspects, that is when the form of wisdom, which is called nama rupa vavatthana jnana, or analytical knowledge of mind and matter, arises. And this knowledge is what will result in the elimination of sakkaya ditthi, or the wrong view of self. So the next stage is purification by overcoming doubt. This is called kaṅkā vitarana visuddhi in Pali. And what happens here is now the meditator is contemplating on mind and matter, and he starts to contemplate on the mind and matter in terms of khandha, ayatana, dhatu, aggregates, faculties, and elements. And through this contemplation, he also starts to apply the principles of dependent origination, paticca samuppada, to these aggregates, elements, and faculties. And thereby he starts to understand that these mind and matter, these nama rupa dhamma, do not arise spontaneously. They don't arise without a cause, nor do they arise due to some unseen force like a god or some spontaneous form. He starts to realize that everything that arises occurs due to some sort of cause. The cause and effect becomes more obvious to the person who is meditating. So he, in other words, removes any sort of doubt, any kind of doubt about the conditions that result in the arising of mind and matter during all three periods, that is past, present, and future. So first he applies it to the present, and then by way of that same process, he applies it and he understands that it is the same when it comes to the past and the future aggregates. So this knowledge of discerning the condition is called paccaya pariggaha in Pali. And now when it comes to nama rupa, he starts to understand that the origination of this mind and matter is due to past avidya, ignorance, tanha, craving, upadana, clinging, and kamma. So he starts to understand that the reason for these nama rupa, mind and matter, to arise is due to these past conditions. Similarly, he starts to see that the cause of origination of matter alone, if you take matter alone, there are 4 causes of origination, which are kamma, chitta, uttu, and ahara. Now, an example given to understand this process is that of a talented doctor. So when a talented doctor sees a patient, he investigates and he is able to find the diagnosis or the cause for that man's illness. Another example given is a man who finds a child who is lost on the street. And what this man does is he goes in search of the parents of that child. So similarly, when the yogi or the meditator starts to observe this mind and matter, he starts to look for the cause for the arising of these mind and matter. And that understanding or that knowledge is what we call the paccaya pariggaha jnana. And through that knowledge, when he eliminates any kind of doubt about these conditions for the mind and matter, that is when we say that this yogi has achieved purification by overcoming doubt, or he has achieved kaṅkha vitarana visuddhi. Yes, so now what we need to describe is, so we have described up to kaṅkha vitarana jnana, and next we come to kalapa sammasana jnana, the insight contemplating the group of mind and matter. So now, once the meditator starts to contemplate mind and matter as aggregates, as ayatana dhatu, he stops to perceive this body and this mind as I, me, mine. And therefore, there is an elimination of attachment to a view of self, or view of I, me, or mine. So once kaṅkha vitarana visuddhi is achieved, the next is magga jnana dassana visuddhi, or purification of path and not path. So the first thing that the meditator does is he collects the mind and matter into various groups, and he starts to explore the mind and matter in terms of the 3 characteristics of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. So first he considers all matter as atita, anagata, vartamana, that is past, future, present, internal, external, gross, subtle, inferior, superior, and far near, the 11 different ways of contemplation of the 5 aggregates. So he does this to the matter aggregate. Similarly, he does the same for the remaining 4 aggregates. So he comprehensively explores the entire panchakanda, the 5 aggregates, in those 11 ways. Next, he comprehends the aggregates individually through the knowledge of comprehension, or the sammasana jnana. So the sammasana jnana is done in 2 broad ways. He explores the mind and matter, the nama rupa, in terms of the 3 characteristics. Yes, so we were talking about how the meditator comprehends the mind and matter with sammasana jnana, or the knowledge of comprehension. So he explores this mind and matter in terms of the three characteristics, which are anicca, dukkha, and anatta. So he begins to see that everything that arises will undergo destruction, or they will pass away. And that is what is mentioned as kayattena, kaya, meaning destruction. And seeing this impermanence or anicca, that is that is how we so seeing this destruction is how he understands the characteristic of anicca or impermanence. The next is dukkha. How is dukkha perceived? So once he sees that whatever that arises passes away, it is impermanent, he then begins to understand that it doesn't provide any sense of security. So therefore, it should be feared. So something that doesn't provide any security should be feared. That is bhayattena. Bhaya means fear. So he sees suffering or dukkha in the sense of fearfulness. So anything that arises will pass away. Therefore, they are impermanent. Because they are impermanent, they don't have any sense of security. Therefore, they are fearful. Thus, they are dukkha, or they generate suffering. And thirdly, is the non-self or anatta. So once this mind and matter, because they lack any form of self or any controlling faculty, they lack any core. They don't have any kind of importance. So it's called asarattena. So this whole mind and matter lacking a core, being coreless, is how the meditator will perceive the mind and matter as non-self. So these are the three: anicca, dukkha, anatta. How the meditator will see anicca, dukkha, anatta through mind and matter, through its arising and passing away. We now come to udaya and vaya. Udaya, vaya, the knowledge of rise and fall. Udaya refers to arising, or the genesis or origination of mind and matter. And vaya refers to the change, destruction, or dissolution of mind and matter. So how this contemplation or knowledge of rise and fall arises or occurs is by way of condition, paccaya vasena, and by way of movement, khana vasena. So we'll first take paccaya vasena, or by way of condition. Now, we know that formations arises and ceases due to various conditions. So the person who meditates starts to see that a particular mind or matter, whichever he's contemplating on, arises as long, or arises when the condition that resulted in it arises. And once that condition ceases to exist, so will that particular mind and matter. Similarly, that will also cease to exist. So as long as the conditions arise, the subsequent results will arise. And once those conditions that gave rise to those results cease to exist, so will those mind and matter. The results also will cease to exist. So by way of condition, he will start to understand this whole process of the mind and matter arising and passing away. The second one, khana vasena, is by way of moment. So from moment to moment, he will contemplate and he will see that this mind and matter arises in the present moment, and he observes it arising and passing away. So from moment to moment, he starts to see that the mind and matter, they arise and they pass away. So this is with regards to time. Now, this is when things get a little more interesting. So as this knowledge of Udayavaya matures and progresses, there arises 10 imperfections of insight, which are called the Dasa Vipassana Upakilesa. And what happens when these arises? So what basically these Dasa Vipassana Upakilesa are things like Obasa, which is like a bright light, which the meditator may witness as if it's arising from his body. Or he may experience extremely intense piti, zest. He may experience passaddhi, tranquility, or he may have immense happiness, sukha. So likewise, there are 10 different types of experiences that this meditator can have. And what happens is that this meditator thinks, now I have achieved a supramundane path and fruition. However, this is not the path or the fruition. So this is why it is called an imperfection of insight, where the meditator must be very cautious at this point, and he should be able to discriminate these characteristics as not being the path. And if he lacks this discrimination, what is going to happen? That he will think that he has achieved some sort of magga or phala, path of fruition, and he will stop the vipassana. He will stop insight meditation, and he will start to enjoy these experiences. And then what is that going to result in? It's going to result in craving. And he's going to go in the exact opposite direction to the insight meditation. So he has to be wise. He should be able to discriminate this, differentiate this, and he should know that this is not the path. The path is insight meditation, and he has to just observe whatever experience that he gets and observe them arising and passing away. Just keep on observing. And that is what is called magga jnana. So magga jnana, dassana jnana is this whole determination, ability to determine or discriminate between the right path and the wrong path. So next, what this meditator would develop would be what is called patipada jnana dassana visuddhi, by knowledge and vision of the way. Now, once the meditator has overcome these obstacles that were posed by the 10 imperfections of insight, he passes through a series of 9 different types of insights or insight knowledges. And these are again in regard to the 3 characteristics of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. So let's look at these 9 different insight knowledges one by one. And they basically start with this Udayavaya. Udayavaya jnana is the first one. But we did mention Udayavaya before. But when this Udayavaya strengthens further, it becomes a form of wisdom. And that is when we call it an Udayavaya jnana. Before it was the meditator only merely in a very superficial manner saw this Udayavaya, but as he keeps on contemplating, it strengthens and it becomes a jnana. So the first jnana is Udayavaya jnana. So we will look at these 9 jnana one by one. Yes, so now let's look at these 9 insight knowledges. So the first one we mentioned was Udayavaya jnana, or the knowledge of rise and fall. So it is the same wisdom that was present before in the magga jnana dassana visuddhi. However, now it becomes more strengthened, it becomes stronger and more mature. So that is the knowledge of rise and fall. The next knowledge is knowledge of dissolution, or bhanga jnana. Now, a person who is seeing this arising now stops to focus on arising of the mind and matter and starts to focus purely on the passing away or the elimination phase. And that is called Bhanga Jnana. So he starts to look with keenly or with more interest at the cessation, the destruction or the fall of the matter. And this is called the knowledge of Bhanga, or the knowledge of dissolution. Now, once he starts to see this dissolution, he develops what is called Bhaya Jnana, or the knowledge of fearful. So once he starts seeing this Bhanga, dissolution, he starts to see that nothing is permanent, everything passes away, there is nothing stable, nothing that you can really rely on. And that generates a sense of fear in this meditator. That is what is called Bhaya Jnana. So in all these three realms of existence, whether it's the sense sphere, whether it's the fine material sphere or the immaterial sphere, in all three spheres, there is nothing that is permanent, that remains stable. Everything arises and passes away. And this is the source of this Bhaya Jnana. Next, we come to Adhinava Jnana. Adhinava Jnana means knowledge of danger. So he recognizes that everything arises and passes away. Therefore, it is something to be feared. There is no satisfaction from these things. And he also starts to see that everything that is conditioned will result in dissatisfaction. And the only place or only thing that will not give rise in any suffering would be something that is not conditioned, the unconditioned. So he will start to see that it is only the unconditioned or nibbana that is free from destruction and will give some sort of security. And that is Adhinava Jnana, or knowledge of danger. Yes, so having seen the danger of these mind and matter, because they are conditioned things, they don't lead to any form of security, he starts to become disenchanted with all things that are conditioned. So that is called Nibbida Jnana, or knowledge of disenchantment. So when he starts to become disenchanted, he starts to look for something that will give some sort of security, which is Nibbana, or the unconditioned. So he gets a desire to be freed, or he gets a desire for deliverance. So that is called Munchitu Kamyata Jnana. Knowledge of a desire to be free, or knowledge of desire for deliverance. So once this knowledge has arisen, now he needs to look for a way of setting himself free. So the next step is to reflect again on the mind and matter, look at the anicca, dukkha, anatta, keep observing, looking for a way to become free. And this is called Patisankha jnana, knowledge of reflective contemplations, where he re-examines the mind and matter in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta, the three characteristics, in various ways, looking for a way to become free, to reach a state of deliverance, or in other words, to achieve or attain nibbana. And once the next stage or the next knowledge is called equanimity, or sankhara upekha jnana. Now we mentioned that he developed a sense of fear, Bhaya Jnana. He started seeing the dangers, the adhinava. He became disenchanted. He had some sort of disgust or nibbida. Now he's looking at the same mind and matter in a different light. He's re-examining them. And now, after re-examining them, he starts to see that there is no I, me, mine, there is no self here. And he starts to become very equanimous with this whole process. And he abandons whatever fears he had. And he starts to become very neutral towards this process. And that is called Sankhara Upekha Jnana. So he sees this arising and passing away, but he is able to remain neutral or equanimous. Whereas before, when he saw this arising and passing away, he developed a fear towards it. And then he started seeing the dangers of it. He became disenchanted. But now, he's looking at it in a different light and he's trying to remain equanimous. So this is the knowledge of equanimity towards formation. And the final knowledge is knowledge of conformity or anuloma jnana. Now, if we go back to the cognitive process of the supramundane part, the Magga Chitta Viti, the Magga Chitta Viti, we get Parikamma, Parikamma, Upachara, Anuloma, Gotrabu. So we get Parikamma, Upachara, Anuloma, Gotrabu. The mind that precedes the Gotrabu Jnana or the Gotrabu Chitta is Anuloma Chitta. So here what is meant by Anuloma Jnana is the wisdom pertaining to this Anuloma Chitta, the Chitta that is immediately preceding the Gotrabu Jnana. So why is it called Anuloma? Because it conforms or it is aligned with the function of these 8 kinds of insights that we mentioned before, starting from the Udayavaya Jnana until the Sankhara Upekha Jnana. And also it has the function of directly aligning with the path to attain Nibbana. So for these 2 reasons, it is called Anuloma Jnana. So these are the 9 different types of wisdoms that pertains to the path. Once these 9 wisdoms are achieved, the next step is basically the occurrence or the appearance of the Gotrabu Chitta, the change of lineage Chitta, where this is the first mind. This becomes the first mind that sees Nibbana, that takes Nibbana as its object. Thereafter, it is followed by the Magga Chitta, which again takes the object of Nibbana, and then further it is followed by the Phala Chitta. So this is the whole process of the cognitive process of the supramundane path. And what is meant by Tadanga Pahana is everything up to the Gotrabu Jnana. So the elimination of the defilements up to the Gotrabu Jnana is what is called Tadanga Pahana. So that was the description about Tadanga Pahana. And now we move on to Vikambana Pahana. Now the example given here is if you have a pot of water and you have a few weeds floating on it, you can move those weeds to a side. Another example is you can take the example of a rubber ball that is floating on water. And if you want this ball to be submerged in the water, you need to apply continuous pressure on that rubber ball. The minute you take your hand away, the ball will re-emerge on the surface. Similarly, with the example of the weeds, you can push them aside, but again, they can float and cover the surface of the water again. Now, Vikambana Prahana refers to the kind of elimination that occurs through samatha bhavana or absorption meditation techniques. So through this concentration, the individual is able to develop samadhi, and through that samadhi, they can suppress the appearances of these defilements. And that is what is meant by vikambana pahana. It's not a complete elimination. It's merely a suppression of these defilements through the power of concentration. The next form of pahānaṁ is samucceda pahānaṁ. Now, this is what we really want to achieve. Samucceda pahānaṁ refers to the complete or the permanent elimination of defilements. And this is done through the different path consciousness, the magga chitta. So each magga chitta is responsible of eliminating a different set of defilements. And this removal or this complete elimination is called samucceda pahānaṁ. The next form, patipassaddhi pahānaṁ. Now, this is a very different form of pahānaṁ. Now, we know that the magga chitta has a way of eliminating these defilements. So an example given is if you take defilements as maybe pieces of wood, what the magga chitta does is it burns or it destroys those defilements. So let's say let's take the example of these pieces of wood. So they burn and they are destroyed. But there still is some degree of heat left remaining in the remaining ashes, even once all of those pieces of wood are completely burned. So that heat, which is persisting in the ash, if you want to get rid of it quickly, you can pour water onto it. So this is a simile, or this is an example given to make it easier to understand what this patipassaddhi pahānaṁ means. So it is a sort of a tranquilizing nature that the palachitta, the fruition consciousness, has on the continuum, on this process, on this consciousness process. So soon after the magga chitta, the pala chitta arises, and the remaining heat from that whole process of destruction or destroying the defilements is kind of tranquilized by the fruition consciousness. And that is what is referred to as patipassaddhi pahāna. And the last form of pahāna is nissarana pahāna. What is nissarana? Nissarana means escape or being free. So nibbana is also called the unconditioned element. It is not conditioned, therefore it is detached from all things that are conditioned. So it has escaped from whatever is conditioned, and therefore nibbana is called nissarana pahāna. Right, so that was the description on Vinaya. So we saw that Vinaya is basically initially divided into two. So it's twofold, and each of them further becomes fivefold. And the word Vinaya has basically takes 10 different forms. So when we say Arya Dhammasa Avinito, we must understand that this is a person who lacks that discipline, right? So similarly, when we say Saddhammasa akovido or Saddhammasa Avinito, we must understand it in the same way that we described Arya Dhammasa akovido and Arya Dhammasa Avinito. So now we come to the 20-fold classification of Sakkaya Ditthi. Sakkaya Ditthi is not a simple thing. It's basically can occur in 20 different ways. And each individual may perceive or may have this wrong view in different ways and to different degrees. So let's look at each of them. So how we look at it is in terms of the 5 aggregates, and each aggregate is further subdivided into 4. So that is how we get the 20 different forms. 5 into 4 equals 20. So let's look at them one by one. We'll first take the aggregate of matter, Rupa-kanda. So the first one, Rupang Attato Samanupassati, regards the self as bodily shape. The second, Rupavantangva Attana, as having bodily shape. The third, Attaniva Rupang, or regards bodily shape as being in the self. And finally, Rupasmingva Attanang, or the self as being in bodily shape. Now we'll take each of these one by one and try to understand what they really mean. So the Atthasālinī gives us different examples to make it easier for us to understand these 4 different forms. So the first, where they say he views material qualities as self, or he views the body as self. The example given here is the flame. When you take the flame and you think of the color, so one may think, okay, the flame and the color both are the same. Similarly, a person may think this body and the self, they are both the same. So that is one way of, one form of wrong view of self, thinking that this body is the self. The next form is where the self is perceived as having some sort of bodily shape, having some sort of shape. Now, the example given here is that of a shadow. Now, you see there is a tree here and there is a shadow. So the shadow has some form of shape. So here the self possesses some form of shape, and that is how this person perceives the self. So the wrong view of self is in the form of thinking that the self has some form of shape. The third one is that the matter is inside the self. Now, the example given here is the scent of a flower. If you take the scent of a flower, the flower, if it's sitting there in a certain place, the scent is completely surrounding it. So it's, if you just think about it, it's as if the flower is inside or is within that scent. So a person may perceive the self as something that is surrounding the matter, or that matter is inside self. So that is the third wrong view of self. And the fourth one, he may think that the self is contained within matter. And the example given here is a gem within a casket. So you have a gem which is hidden inside that casket, and a person may think that the self is also like that, hidden inside the body, hidden inside matter. So these are the 4 different ways a person can perceive self in terms of body, the wrong view of self in terms of the material aspect. So in the same way, we need to look at Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, and Vijnana. So in the same way that we analyzed the Rupa-kanda, we need to analyze the remaining 4 aggregates in the same way. And that is how we get the 20 different forms of Sakkaya Ditthi. So here, finally, in the Nikkepa Khandam, it's several words are given here. Ditti, dittigatang, dittigahanang. All of these words are given to describe the word Sakkaya Ditti. And now the reason for having so many, these are all synonyms for the word Sakkaya Ditti. And the reason for giving so many words to describe the same thing is because different people may understand the same thing in different ways. So here the text describes the word Sakkaya Ditti in multiple ways so that whoever is learning this will understand it using any of these given terms. Right. So now we spoke about Sakkaya Ditti. So that was the first fetter that is eliminated by the Sotapatti Magga Chitta. The second one we will be talking about is Vichikiccha or doubt. So what is doubt? Vichikiccha takes the form of 8 different forms of doubt. So let's see what these 8 types of doubts are. The first one, Sattarikankati Vichikicchati, the master to doubt, to be perplexed about. So basically, to have any kind of doubt regarding the master. And who is the master? The master is the completely enlightened one, or the Buddha. The second is to have doubts regarding the Dhamma, or the teachings of the enlightened one, the Buddha. The third doubt is to have regarding the order, or the Sangha, the disciples of the Buddha. The fourth, Sikkaya Kankati Vichikicchati. This is to have doubt regarding the discipline or the path that has been taught, the path of Sila Samadhi Panya. Next is Pubbante Kankati Vichikicchati. Following that, Aparante Kankati Vichikicchati and Pubbantaparante Kankati Vichikicchati. Now I'm taking these 3 together because they are all interconnected. So having doubts regarding the past is Pubbante Kankati Vichikicchati. Having doubts regarding the future is Aparante Kankati Vichikicchati. Having doubts regarding both the past and the future is Pubbantaparante Kankati Vichikicchati. And the final one is to have any kind of doubt regarding the whole cause and effect process, or in other words, having doubts regarding Paticca Samuppada or dependent origination. So these are the 8 different types of doubts that a person can have. And we will look at these individually one by one in the next few slides. So again, here in this paragraph, there are multiple synonyms given for the word Vichikiccha, Kanka, Kankayana, and so on and so forth. And again, it is the same for the same reason, because different people understand the same thing in different ways. So in order to give all of them that ability to understand, this word Vichikiccha has been described in multiple ways. So now we are going to the Atthasālinī, or the commentary description of each of those 8 different forms of Vichikiccha or doubts. The first one is doubt regarding the teacher. So this doubt could be either regarding the teacher's body or the qualities, or both of these, both the body or the qualities. Now, what is this thing about the teacher's body? So it is mentioned in the scriptures that there are 32 excellent characteristic signs of the Buddha. And having any kind of doubt, did the Lord Buddha have these sort of characteristics? Having these kind of doubts is one form of Vichikiccha. The other form of Vichikiccha is regarding having doubts regarding the qualities, was there such a person as the Buddha who had different forms of wisdoms, who was fully enlightened, who had the ability to know another person's mind, who had the ability to see the past existences like that. A person may have doubts regarding the qualities of the Buddha. So this is the first form of Vicikiccha, where he doubts the teacher or where he doubts the Buddha. So the second form of doubt is doubting the doctrine. So whether this Dhamma, regarding the 4 paths, are these Magga or the path consciousness able to eliminate defilements? Having doubts regarding the teachings of the Buddha is what is meant by having doubts regarding the doctrine. So basically, is it possible to be free from this round of births, free from samsara? Can this doctrine lead us to that sort of deliverance? Having those kind of doubts is this second form of doubt, where he doubts the doctrine. So the third form of doubt is regarding the order or regarding Sangha. So who is Sangha? Sangha are the disciples of Lord Buddha. And the Sangha comprises of the Arya Puggala, the ones who have attained the paths, attained the fruitions, and also those who are walking on the path. So one may have doubts regarding these regarding the Sangha. Is there really a group of people who have attained these paths and fruitions? Do they really have these kind of qualities in them? So a person may have doubts regarding the Sangha or regarding the order. And that is the third form of doubt. Next, we come to the fourth kind of doubt, the doubt regarding the training. Now, what is the training? The training that has been laid down by the Buddha comprises of 3 stages, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. So whether this training will lead to deliverance, whether this is the path, whether this is what we should follow, having any kind of doubt regarding this Sila, Samadhi, Panya is the fourth kind of doubt, the doubt regarding the training. Now, the next, we'll take them together. Having doubts regarding the past, having doubts regarding the future, and having doubts regarding both the past and the future. Now, what is meant by this past and future is with regards to the existence. Now, for example, a person may think, did I have a doubt regarding, did I have a past life? And what is going to happen once I die? Will I be born again or will I not be born? Having those kind of doubts regarding past existences and regarding future existences is called having doubts regarding the past and the future. And finally, we have the 8th one is having doubts regarding the paticca or dependent origination. So Lord Buddha has spoken of this, the round of the 12 causes, starting from avidya, paccaya sankhara, and so on. So having a doubt regarding this process, this cause and effect, the cause and effect process is the last form of doubt. So having any kind of doubt regarding this eventually would lead to doubting, having doubts regarding the past and the future. Because a person who doesn't believe in paticca, this cause and effect, is likely to not believe in a rebirth, in another existence after death during this existence. So in a way, some of these doubts are interconnected. However, when it comes to doubt, we lay them down separately as 8 different doubts. An individual may have one or may have more, may have all 8. So it can be to different degrees that this doubt persists in that individual's consciousness. So finally, we have Silabbata Paramasa. And Silabbata Paramasa refers to clinging to various rites or ceremonies or rituals in the belief that they can lead to liberation. So there are different examples given. Go Vuta, Sunaka Vuta. And so in the past, during Lord Buddha's time, there were people, various people who thought that by following various practices, they can liberate themselves from the samsara. So one of those things were behaving like dogs, which is called Sunaka Vuta. Another one was behaving like cattle, which was called Go Vuta. So they had various kinds of different rituals which they performed, thinking that they will that it will lead to liberation. There was another form, a performance of yaga. Yaga means they get hold of a lot of animals and they kill them. And through this killing, they feel that it's as an offering to God. They thought that they can make God happy, and through that process, they could eliminate their defilements and liberate themselves. So it's a very false way of performing these rites and rituals, thinking that they can liberate themselves. So this Silabbata Paramasa is another defilement that will be removed by insight. It's another dassanena pahātabbā dhamma. So today was a very content-dense session. So I feel we should stop the lesson now. What I would like you to do for homework, which something that would complement the knowledge that you have acquired from today's lesson, is to go through the comprehensive manual of Abhidhamma, the Abhidhammatthasaṅgaha. And in particular, I want you to read the Vipassana section, the compendium of insight. And that is where we discussed about the Tadanga Pahāna. And if you go through that, it will make the knowledge that you gathered today more clear, and it will help you understand those different types of knowledges and the visuddhis that we discussed under that section. So the next, unfortunately, we don't have time for questions. The next lesson will be on the 27th of October. Let's all share merits together. Ākāsattā ca bhummattā deva naga mahittika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sāsanang chiran rakkantu desanang chiran rakkantu mamparang. Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukhita hontu ñāteo. Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukhita hontu ñāteo. Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukhita hontu ñāteo. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satan samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Idam me punyang asavakya vahang hotu. Idam me punyang nibbanassa paccayo hotu. Mama punya bhagam sabba sattanang bhajemi. Te sabbe me samang punya bhagam labantu. Buddha Sāsanang Chiran Tiktatu, Buddha Sāsanang Chiran Tiktatu, Buddha Sāsanang Chiran Tiktatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Doctor. Sadhu. Good night.
Sadhu.